E mua no si vinga man whaftai le tua ili nei foi Taeao fou on whaun tātou au lia mai no nā lofa mono nā ngalelei. O te whata lofa tu le mano so tātou watunu a wala o mai moanga le nei Taeao i le TV tolu ia i lau pokalame masangi o le tupulanga moa Taeao for the generation for tomorrow. O Prince Fa'aso i lalvino mle tonga o te saumela le nuule o sātalo whale alili ma o te fia whala ilo atu a o le sui ma le vaenga le Brown Care Walk whatara noa ina ia nisi o mta upu e ala i tupulanga talavou. Fia we whatalo wha atu i lau so atau ia o le sunga ia Tia Maria. Good morning, Tia.
Good morning, Prince, and good morning, Samoa. Welcome back to another episode of Generation for Tomorrow. I am Tia Maria Pepe Tafi Aluni, your host for Generation for Tomorrow, an intern and scholar student of Brown Girl Woke, a nonprofit organization that trains, recruits, and educates the youth to be leaders and how to deal with critical issues happening in Samoa. This is a youth talk show where we discuss taboo issues happening in our community, but also celebrate our young champions and also promote our young entrepreneurs. This morning and also every morning we have amazing and special guests for you. But one for this morning is no stranger to Generation for Tomorrow and also BGW. So without further ado, I give him the floor to introduce himself. So good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Tia. Good morning, Prince.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me again. Joseph Seia here. I'm from Washington State, but my villages are Vaimoso, Lufi-Lufi, Salani, and Asau. But I'm actually here on, not vacation, I'm here actually to help my dad build his house. Yes. But prior to being here, my work that I do in the U.S. is I was the founder of the Pacific Islander Community Association, which is an association that helps facilitates a body of work for young people and elders and for Pacific Islanders at large in Washington State and in the U.S. To really drive towards social justice, making sure our youth, especially our youth and our families, Pacific Islander families, are doing well in the U.S. And so that's predominantly my work. I also do a lot of work in anti-racism, where I facilitate discussions and bodies of work where we get to help foster understanding of racism and how it harms people, like especially Pacific Islanders, and how it also harms us, in a social larger scale. But not just that, but equip our people with language and tools so that they're able to have agency and have a sense of power to fight for change, and to know that their voice matters in the U.S. And so it's my work. I'll give it back to you guys, Prince and Tia.
For justice.
Ia
Thank
mo
you
le
very much,
sila fia
Joseph.
fo mano so tātou watu no ia o tātou pokalami nei no e whaingoina o le TALANOA ma Joseph. TALANOA ma Joseph. Ia o le sunga ia Joseph o ia lea o le founder of Pacific Islander Community Association. Ia o ia le o lo whaululua ia tangata o Pacifica o lo tonu o atunu mau. Tere foi oni whawhita uli o lo tupu mai atunu mau, e whai foi ni whata tano ino ina nea fionga, e whai foi na ia fisosoani I tupulanga talavou. E ala le tele o whawhita uli ma mea o lo tutupu o la tau o langa. Ai a tātou amataina tātou po kalame o te momono o whatalo whatu I lawa fionga, Joseph. Ia a wafo ile nei am no matanga o fion whai tātou tatano ile nei Taeao. Au te fia whafisiri lava I le mta upule o le whailonga lanu. I le tele o atunu ma ia o lo tupu e lava le whawhita uli o le whailonga lanu, po le whailonga tangata. Ia o taimine ia e leo ua le ngata o le whailonga ina lea o whailonga lanu I lanu o tātou pa o apeo whailonga tangata pe o tangata Pasifika, tangata Pālani. O lea lau te whafisiri atu ai pe o le a le sawa ma le whaatuputupula ia o le whawhita uli te tonu atunu mau.
Yeah, thanks, Prince. So racism is huge in the U.S. Racism has three different forms. There's racism where, it takes decades for us to internalize messages of we're less than, right? Yeah. So every time we go out to society, we go into different places that we shop at or we work at, we are communicated that we are less than if we don't speak a certain way, if we don't look a certain way, and then that eventually leads to lower self-esteem. So So oftentimes abroad, when Samoans come abroad, a lot of Samoans, they work in the lower positions in a lot of the employment fields because they have internalized a message that they're less than, right?
Yes.
And it starts here. It starts here in Samoa, the way that we internalize that we're less than. And then when they go abroad, because they don't have that voice, they don't know how to speak for themselves, to advocate for themselves. So there's a study that says that a lot of Samoans just hold the lowest level jobs for decades, and they don't ask for raises, they don't ask for promotions. There are other ways that racism manifests, like there's the societal ways that racism manifests. So in the U.S., for example, Pacific Islanders have the highest rates of homelessness. Pacific Islanders have the highest rates of killings by the police. So when you call the police, when you're in crisis in the U.S., as a Pacific Islander, you are most likely to die at the hands of police through a gun shooting. And there are numerous ways that racism impacts Pacific Islander people in the U.S. But I think here in the context of Samoa, I think Samoa still have remnants of their colonial past, right?
Yeah.
Le whapea o le taimile lenga kolone Samoa, o le e alu whailunga lang whapenga, and a lot of that is classism, but it's also the way that we treat our dark-skinned siblings and cousins. E lai ngua kako e whaingoa, e kako ke ia le pe e uli le paua. O foi le upule o le mea uli, o le upule o le mea uli, o le upu palau vale, au I Samoa e whao ngā lau tele ale upua. Ia e te taula na toi mawhauwhau I tangata Samoa. Po le ale, po all of the ways that whailonga lanu is still in our culture, how do we start to change our language, change our attitudes in a way that we understand beauty and worth? And so I think it starts here in Samoa, and then when they come to the U.S., it gets worse.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Joseph. Since you already highlighted that the word meoli has always been in our language, even I did not really think of it as anything, but when you think about it, it is, if you translate it, it's a black thing, you know, and we always tease our, cousins or relative that is of darker skin of this word, so that we have people of darker skin that are foreigners coming in our country, and we call them this certain racial term, slur.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do not think of it that way as something that's bad, because we have normalized it as like part of our culture,
That's
part of
right.
our language.
That's right.
But it is something that, as Papa Joseph has said, it is something that we have to, find another term for it, But
And the other term is really the term that's in our language, tangata uli. Ia o le vale upule o tangata uli. O panga e refer tangata ia e uli paua. Ia o whele si upua on the other side of me uli, o le palangi, o le upule o palangi. Ia o le upule whamai o palangi, ngā papailangi o maile si tu pingia tua. So it's like equating white people to gods. That's what palangi is. It's equating white people to gods. So the real term for palangi people is tangata Europa, po tangata papae. E taulangan to e sui tatongana, e ale whapea whaatusa I tangata palangi I atua, e whaatusa tangata uli I mea ia to low lava lau language.
Yeah, it's something dirty. In the video that we did for an animation, that was my answer. That's what racism means to me. It's the beauty standard that we have always placed in our culture. As Joseph has said, where the color white or a white person is seen as pure or, heavenly, angelic, and
More beautiful,
black or a black person is seen as demonic or dirty and so forth. That is where it starts. And these little things we do not see as much, but it really takes a long way. I'll leave the floor to Prince to...
And I'll just add on, some of the ways that we've already been racialized here is the way that we divide up Pacific Islanders, right?
Yeah.
We say Polynesia is at top, right? At the top. And then it's Micronesia. And then at the lowest is Melanesia. And even the term Melanesia means people of black skin, right? It's a racial slur as well. And, I think sometimes we have a lot of our Melanesian brothers and sisters in Samoa that I don't think we treat very well. You know, I see a lot of our Solomon Vanuatuans, Fijians here, and I think there's a historical legacy because they were brought here to be indentured servants, and I think Samoa still has to reckon with the fact that they need to treat our Melanesian brothers and sisters with the same way that we treat each other.
Equality.
Sa le lava ia la fionga Joseph ia o le matau pula failunga lanu e a fu mai ona le ama sai nei tono so ta to watunu ia lava le ufasa mo fa pia a tato le manu ai fali ia tato te le manu foi fa a fa pia le solo musa ia te tato le failunga lanu to tono Samoa e tato atu foi atu ma o lo failunga lanu foi e tangata la tato a le tato faingon tato loto i fali ia o i do manatu e le mafai ona tupu se me fapea ona e inisi o matua ia e lato whanau ia o isi ia tamaiti papai isi tamaiti mea uli tulo le ngana e lato te whanunga ina la fapea fia lava i tamaiti au le lei ma papai ia e le fia i nei tamaiti o le wingala le o le whamtalanga o le afua mai loto i fali ana le loto i fali ia te manatu e le lei fo ia fafo atu o le loto i fale au te manatu ia o le tatu vaenga moana o tatu pua kalami a le ala atu i natu atia.
Yeah, I will add on, Prince. I'll add on because, you know, the way that we rank beauty, saying that like we prefer lighter skin or white skin babies over dark skin babies, there's a historical reason for that. And it's because, you know, prior to us getting independence, the only Samoan that can vote in white society here in Apia were ones that were half white. Hence the term half caste, afakasi, right? Yes. So if you're afakasi and you can vote with all the other white people, you know, in the affairs of Samoa, of course a whole society is going to say, oh, we need kids that are half white, right? Yeah. So it has its historical roots in the racism that was brought over by the Europeans. So I think prior to that, Samoans were not that. We were not racist. You know, at our core, we are a black people. If you look at all of our pictures of our ancestors, but now it's like there's this preference to, be Afghasi or to lift up Afghasi status, which I think, there's nothing wrong with being half white and half Samoan, but we have to critically understand it in the context of our history, in the context of how we treat each other. So that a kid from Ku'a, my cousin, my brother here from Falealili, is given, the same, if not, better opportunities to thrive because, somebody like Prince has a lesser chance, to make it out here because he might not speak English perfectly. He hasn't been in town. His skin might be darker because so this is all like context. And how do we begin to lift up our brothers that are in the villages?
Thank you very much, Joseph. We'll be right back right after this short commercial break with more Talanoa with Joseph. Don't go anywhere.